I was at the USC Shoah Foundation, and I got a sense that they are very concerned about Arabs and Palestinians and wokeness. And this is a USC, I found this across the campus, that there's a tolerance for Palestinian and Muslim grievances against Jews and against Israel. And I thought, if this is at USC, well, it can't be unique. It must be something that's going on in academia. And of course, if you're heading a Jewish culture history thing, so it's what would you call it? The kind of center?
Jewish Studies Institute.
Yeah. So what are things like for you?
Well, I think that, I think that what you've described, first of all, for the Shoah is inaccurate.
Okay.
The Shoah is they have just created a academic unit there, a whole new unit, and hired a very good PhD, a woman I've been working with, to mine the Shoah archives for academic purposes for the Jews who suffered there, who went through the Holocaust, and others who went through the Holocaust. But it is a concerted effort. And if anyone is thinking the Shoah Foundation has turned pro-Palestinian, I'd say that's wrong, that they have tried to understand the complexity of things. In the same way, on our campus, I can't speak for other campuses around the country, but on our campus, we have had pro-Palestinian demonstrations and we have had pro-Israel demonstrations. What separates USC from most other campuses is they have been respectful. No one is calling for death or harm to the others. They are stating their cause, and they do it. They are passionate on both sides, but we are not seeing, yes, are there some incidents of anti-Semitism? Of course, that happens anywhere. But you don't see it rampant on our campus. And our president, Carol Folt, has been very good about keeping that and allowing free expression as long as there is no call to harm. Anyone calls for harm and they're shut down.
You mean in the visiting speakers who come and might be insightful?
It just hasn't happened. It hasn't happened on our, it just hasn't happened on our campus.
How about now since the war? What has that changed in some way?
Well, it's changed across the country, and I think a lot of the reason it's changed is because, look, students for generations have always liked David versus Goliath stories. And for decades, Israel has been David against various Goliaths. And now, for the first time, it looks like Israel seems to be the Goliath against David's. And so students are, I think, supporting, look, no one wants death to anyone. And students are calling for ceasefire because they want to stop killing. But they also don't understand, in many cases, the complexity of the situation. And so a lot of what we're seeing is not so much, I think, anti-Semitism, but miseducation, of not really understanding the history of the Middle East, the history of Israel, the history of 1948, of the Palestinians leaving, of the war starting in 48. And so to me, as an educator, I still believe the best solution is education. There are some people who will always hate, but I think most people hate out of ignorance, not out of knowledge. And when you get people to understand, and when you can explain it to them in a clear way, I think you can shift the needle on things. And so that what we all want, I think, is peace. We want the hostages released.
Well, when you say we all, you mean we Jews?
We Jews. We want to live in peace. We want to live in peace with our neighbors, and we want our neighbors to live in peace with us.
Right. But the aggression doesn't come from the Jews towards the Arabs, or towards the Muslims, or towards the blacks, but it comes from the Muslims and blacks towards the Jews. Do they necessarily want peace, or are they looking for justice as they define it?
Well, I'm sorry. It's a terrible question because you're making all Muslims, blacks, one group.
I'm not.
No.
No, I'm not making all. No, what I'm saying, but
that's how you just posed the question to me.
Well, when we see violence towards Jews, it mostly is not coming from the Christian right.
No, but if we're going to talk about violence, there's violence all around. There's violence on the West Bank from settlers against Arabs. There's violence on both sides. Now, mind you, I think the violence against the Israelis has been far greater. violence from Hamas against Israel. And not necessarily violence from the Palestinian people, but violence from Hamas and Palestinians who work for Hamas. I think everything I've read is most Palestinians would just as soon live in peace, send their kids to school, not worry about terror on either side. So to my mind, that's ultimately what we want to work towards is a peace. I also do believe we have run a series for 2 years ago on moving the dialogue forward, Israel-Palestine, moving it forward, where we brought together 3 panels where we had, on the first 2 Jews, 2 Palestinians, all of whom disagreed with each other about everything, but all agreed on peace. And basically what everyone talked about is the inevitability of a 2-state solution. When both states recognize the existence of the other, and particularly for a Palestinian state to openly recognize there can be no 2-state unless one of the states says, the Palestinian, every state, legitimate state, deserves to survive, period.